Let's talk modular. What if one module could sequence drums and rhythms, melodies, and be a modulation source? And even modulate the modulation in 8 HP. Would it be any good? I'm back with another video on this modular Groovebox. This series is all about different combinations of modules that make this for you 104 HP case a Groovebox. Put this down. Because you don't need a ton of modules to make music or have fun in modular. There's so many different ways to build out a really usable case in this compact-ish form factor. It's also really cool to explore how different modules affect the way that you patch and the way that you play your patches. Today's video is going to be a bit different. When I say different, I don't mean that we're going to try and define what is real or anything. I mean, we're obviously living in a simulation and Neo is going to be the only one that can save us from the machines, right? For real though, we're going to be talking about this, Bastl Neo Trinity. Part knob recorder, gate recorder, modulation source, envelope generator, quantizer. What else does this do? Probably even more things. With 6 channels you can send out into your case, all in 8 HP. Because Neo Trinity is so dense, there's so many features, if I covered everything, I figured it would end up being an hour-long demo. I didn't want to do that, and I think that software already did an amazing job. Plus, Bastl has like a series on this module that goes into all the deep details. So I just wanted to focus on the fun stuff, making some patches and jams. So this gave me an idea. I'm just about to put this in the case. I've only patched it up once, weeks ago. And I did read the manual, sort of, months ago. And I'm just gonna dive in. In this video, I'll spend about a week going through different patches with the module, getting to know it, and I'll share my experience along the way. I'll try to answer some questions, not just what's going on in the patch, but things that I just figured out, what I feel like I want to learn more about next, when I have to dig into the manual, or this handy little card. That's interesting. Does that count? And I'll tell you how I'm finding it in general. The UI, playability, all that. I feel like with a module that can do so many things, these kinds of things matter a lot. It's not just what it does or what it can do, but how it does it. If you can keep track of it all, or if you're even meant to. Before jumping in, a big thanks goes out to Bastl for sending this to me. I got it with the agreement that I'd show it in some videos and patches. But just so you know, when they reached out to me, it was actually next on my to-buy list. Even though I'm trying to focus on that empty one-use space that I have in the case, and failing miserably. I actually knew I wanted to pick this up when it was just teased in a blurred out part of a Bastl video. Yeah, I was that excited. Something about it just spoke to me, having a lot of playable function in a compact form. Kind of my thing. I also figured with that compact size there would be some tricky usability things to solve for. But when Neo Trinity was announced, what I saw did not disappoint. To say that I'm excited to put this in the case is definitely an understatement. I mean, a controllable, recordable modulation source sounds awesome. All right, time to get this in the case. After getting the Neo Trinity in the case and powered up, the 6 channel selectors A, B, C, D, E, F are all labeled and oriented the same way as the outputs are, which works nicely. Cycling between LFO, envelope, and CV modes was pretty easy. There's just a toggle button. I knew I could record the knob and the button, but I had to look in the manual to see exactly how and how to clear it as well. You do that once and you don't really forget. There's a record button, and twisting the knob, you record the knob. Pressing the button, you record the button. Playing around with that, I figured the knob and the button would do different things depending on the mode, but I'd explore that in the patching. With those basics covered, I set up my cameras and started patching. I'll just go over the patch itself. TrackMap Banshee Reach and WMD Carbon are the bass, and Bastl Pizza is the lead. Envelopes from TrackMap Triple Steeple, and effects from Endorphin's Ghost. Drum stuff is the Rample again, but Noise Tools is providing white noise for the hats. I wanted to have a bunch of different uses for Neo Trinity in the patch, and I definitely mixed it up. Noise Tools is clocking a bunch of stuff: Neo Trinity, IntelliGel Steppy, Shackmat Night's Gallop, and then Dorfin's Ghost Delay. And some reset is coming from Steppy as well. What is Neo Trinity doing in the patch? Output A is in LFO mode and is going to the ring mod on Pizza. When I move the control knob on Pizza from 12 noon, it's in play. It's just a triangle, but I also recorded the knob a little bit, and that automates the rate to speed it up, which is a lot of fun. So cool how you can have both slow and fast LFOs in one output on one patch cable. Outputs B, C, and D are sequencing drums, all using envelope mode. B is the kick, C is the snare, both triggering drum samples on Rample. D is for hats. This is going to veils, to VCA, noise from Noise Tools. Sometimes I just like the simple noise for hats instead of samples, but I should really just get some sweet hat samples going on. Output E is CV recording, going to the pulses on Night's Gallop. This is to increase or decrease pulses in the Euclidean patterns. In this case, Night's Gallop is triggering two things using one of its modes, where the second output is derived by math of the first one. They're both going to triple steeple to trigger AD envelopes. The first one is for the bass, filter, and VCA. The second is for the lead, FM index on Pizza, and a VCA as well. Output F is going to Bard Quartet. This is how I'm sequencing the pitches on Pizza. It's all getting attenuated before going to Bard Quartet though, just for a little bit more control. Let's see if there's anything else really of note. The bass pitches are an ARP coming from Bard Quartet triggered by Steppy, and that pitch is multed and sent back into Bard Quartet to transpose the lead for some of the positions of the harmony knob. Overall, a fun little patch, and definitely a good way to get to know this little module. So, fun little jam here. A little bit fumbly, but that's kind of the point. As you're getting to know modules, it just takes a little bit of time to gel. Since I covered off some basics before the jam, here's what else I've figured out. Being able to record rate changes of LFOs is really cool. So recording the knob, you can think about it as automation. You can speed up or slow down the LFO whenever you want. And when you're not recording, you can adjust the overall value by twisting the knob. That's so cool because you're getting multiple levels of control that you can really dial in what you want. That did get me wondering, how does it determine the length of time that the automation happens? And when does it reset, right? There's no progress bar or anything like that. I did have to check the manual for that one. If you hold down record and then press one of the channel selectors, you're choosing one of multiple options from 2 to 64 steps. You can even adjust by ones if you want to get fancy by pressing plus or minus. But I'd say if you're automating a length that makes sense with the music you're making, you can just use what you're hearing as reference. But you can also use something like Steppy. Because Steppy has chase lights on it, you basically have 16 steps right there. And with the div modes on it, you can have it line up with whatever's most helpful. See, your modules just want to help each other out. Oh, something else I figured out. How to change the shape of the LFOs, change your range of CV from 5 to 2 volts, which is really helpful for creating pitch sequences, how to smooth modulation, all very effective things, very easy to do on the module. At this point, the second layer of things starts to show itself. Button combinations. And I wonder how that's going to work out for me. I did get the hang of Shackmat Barred Quartet, and now I can zip around it. But there is a little bit more going on in Neo Trinity, so we'll see. Honestly, if I stopped learning anymore at this point and just used what I know on Neo Trinity, it would still be great. With 6 outputs and just the 3 modes, automating those things, and being able to sequence things via trigger too, in different lengths, I mean, that's great. And it can clock itself or be externally clocked. Yeah, it's pretty fun so far. And yeah, for the moment, I'm fumbling around a little bit, but I imagine that'll smooth out with a couple jams and patches as I learn more. Something else that's sinking in is being able to do different lengths of automation. That means you can do polyrhythmic stuff if you want, or you can use one channel to transpose another channel, making variations. I wonder if there's divs though, because if you had divs of the clock, you could have longer progressions. I could even use Neo Trinity to automate Barred Quartet, like the harmony knob, making progressions that way. Whoa, so many things to experiment with. Also, you can automate envelopes as well. I did that with the hats. Okay, let's move on. What has been tricky so far? The envelopes were different than I thought that they would, but it makes sense. You just record the button for whenever you want envelopes to happen. You're not using an external sequencer to trigger it to make envelopes. Once I figured that out, it was really easy to make it sequence drums. Saving was a bit tricky. Actually, a number of things are a little bit tricky without reading the manual. This is probably a module you're going to want to do that for, or at least keep the cheat sheet with you for the first little bit. Once you do the functions once or twice, I'm sure it'll be easy to repeat. I'll let you know how it goes for me. Wish me luck. What else do I want to learn more about? I'd say the inputs. How do they work and how do I record? Are there clock divs and mults within this module? That'd be cool. I heard that you can do pattern generation right in the module and change it up on the fly after. I want to check that out for sure. And I think that's about it. Anyway, I think it's about time that I dig into that manual, learn these things, and get into another patch. Here we go. Approaching the second patch, I wanted to utilize the inputs on the Neo Trinity and get a bit more of a performance out of the jam. Maybe that's just becoming more comfortable. Yeah. The bass line is Bastl Pizza and the lead is Shackmat Banshee Reach going through WMD Carbon for filtering. Neo Trinity channel F is the pitch sequencing of Pizza. It's in CV recorder mode. The F input is receiving a simple ARP from Shackmat Barred Quartet channel 2. These two act together as a longer sort of ever-changing melodic pattern, as the phasing of the ARP and the CV sequence aren't the same length. The CV recording acts to transpose that melodic pattern around. Channel F output is going to Barred Quartet channel 3 to get quantized before going to Pizza. And Barred Quartet has a couple different settings for the ARPs and notes on the different harmony positions. Neo Trinity channel E is for the pitch sequencing of Banshee Reach. It's also set to CV recorder mode. The output is going to the input of the sample and hold on IntelliGel noise tools. This is so I could have control over when the note changed. I multed a gate pattern from channel C on Steppy and sent it to the trig of the sample and hold. I also sent that same gate pattern to channel 1 of triple steeple in attack decay mode for envelopes. I sent that envelope to WMD Carbon. Anyhow, all that means is that when Steppy sends a gate, it's using an envelope to open the filter a bit more, giving more timbral control to the jam, because I can modulate the filter by hand. The output from the sample and hold is going to bar quartet channel 1 to be quantized before going to the volt per octave of Banshee Reach. All this sounds complicated, but really it allows for some messing around with Steppy to determine quite a bit of the patch. And also, I can then use the CV recorder to make sequences of varying lengths, which I switch up through the jam. So making melodies on the fly, it's kind of my favorite thing, I guess. I used channel D of Neo Trinity to generate a hi-hat pattern I'm sending to Rample. Then channel C is a CV recorder again, sending attenuated voltage to the CV of Rample to change the layer of the hi-hat sample. In this case, I have a couple different hits from soft to hard. Kick and snare are being sequenced by Shackmat Knight's Gallop for Euclidean beats. And those gates go into Rample, of course. Clock is coming from Noise Tools, Pulse Out. I kept a lot of things similar to the other patches here, so I could just focus on what Neo Trinity was doing. Anyway, that's all the main stuff. Enjoy the jam. I'm a couple days in, and really that was my 4th patch with the Neo Trinity. 1, to get a sense of what was going on. 2, the first jam. 3, another patch for learning. 4, the jam you just heard. So still pretty early on. I was hoping to get more patching done in the process of learning, but I'm also trying to record the rest of this video before my kids are done school for the season. I'm not gonna make it. I did get a chance to take a look at the manual, but I haven't gone the whole way through it. It's like 54 pages long. That's 54 very manageable pages though. And they're optimized for a phone too. Nice touch, Bastl. I think the part that I'm at right now is the patch examples. There's lots of them. They help to open up the module a lot, showing different ideas you might not be using. For instance, in the patch you just heard, I was using noise tools for sample and hold for CV recording going to Banshee Reach. But I could have just sent trigs to the input of Neo Trinity and set that up as sample and hold instead. Anyway, since the first patch, I think I'm a lot more confident with the UI. And I don't seem to forget to punch in the channel before making changes. I can sometimes forget on modules like Variegate and all the time on Constellation. It might be because the Neo Trinity has the channel selectors at the top and the right. Seems helpful. And I've been thinking about this whole button combination thing too. I think it's way better than menus on a module like this. It keeps things really fast, and when you let go of the buttons, it's easy to tell where you are. Really, you're always making adjustments to one of the 6 channels or the clock channel. So yeah, button combos are winning me over, I guess. CV knob recording seems really smooth and intuitive. I can easily set the range, 2 or 5 volts in bipolar or unipolar. This means more precise control over the range that you're going to use, and a larger usable range of the knob, all without needing an additional attenuverter. And that's per channel. I also figured out how clock dividers and multipliers work. I think this is a global setting and only applies when you're clocking externally. It makes sense that it's global though, because you access it through the clock channel. One setting, right? This might seem like a downfall, but I think it keeps it playable, because at any time you can half time or double time all that's going on the module. This is not something you can do on Variegate. You have to do those by channel, like independent. The reason why I keep comparing it to Variegate is that's another sequencer that I have that deals with some of the things that are similar. The way divs work too means that it's probably better to use an external ARP or something like that to do transposition for longer sequences. That's because you can't have, say, 4 steps occupying the same length as 64 steps within the module. You can try to do that with the very, very fast knob turns, but if the divs are sort of at a regular clock rate, it'll be really tricky. You'll end up with a couple notes in between as you're going, unless, of course, you add a sample and hold with those divs, but then it's getting more complicated. The inputs work really well, as I was mentioning. I feel like I'm only scratching the surface though. It's like my experiences with the Bard Quartet. What you can do with the inputs is probably endless, and I'll continue to explore each patch. So talking about inputs, there's 3 inputs. One dedicated for each of the channels E and F, and a meta input where you can select the channels that are affected. UI for this is pretty smart. Smarty. So you just press and hold E or F or Shift for the meta input, and then the input mode shows up in the mode selection. It's a bit tricky as there's only 3 lights and 7 modes, but I'm okay with it because if you're using this feature, you're probably a keener and kind of down for some of these obscurities. It is also labeled on the panel, though the labels are pretty small. The 7 modes are worth noting. Regular attenuated, inverted attenuated. It's super nice to have attenuating and inverting here because it saves your attenuverters for other things. VCA, which acts as a VCA of the output. Trig, which triggers an envelope or resets the LFO with a rising edge. And sample and hold that I mentioned before, which works not only with the CV recording, but also LFOs. It's very cool to see the layers of function that's been applied to Neo Trinity. You still retain a lot of control over the things that you want to remain playable, but things like sample and hold are built right in. Okay, let's talk about saving. I got this wrong so many times, but figured it out thanks to the manual. All you need to do is press bank and then one of the channels to save it in that bank, but you need to hold those buttons down for over 2 seconds. If you just press it, you'll end up loading that bank and anything that you wanted to save will be gone. I did that just a few times. No good. You can also load banks in time. I'm assuming it just takes the longest sequence and changes right after that. You just need to press bank and then clock and then whichever bank you want to load. A, B, C, D, E, F. See, the button combos actually make sense. Adding clock as a multiplier to that says that you're concerned about the timing of that load. See, I'm getting it slowly. I think I covered off most of what I want to talk about. What do I want to learn more about next? I think it'd be a fun challenge to sequence a bunch of stuff on Neo Trinity and then swap back and forth through the banks to make a longer jam. That might help solidify the button combos in my mind too. I might even try sequencing stuff during the jam, like trigs and various things, other than knob recording. That's pretty well easy to do. Oh, also, that pattern generation, it works really well. Maybe I'll try a little bit more of that. I used it on the hats of this previous jam. All right, let's see what I made next.
Gotta go pick up my kids. Save all the things, edit, save. Move this over.
All right, what can I say now? I love this thing. It's just far more than you can expect from a knob recorder, I think. So if you're interested in a CV recorder of any kind and you're down for the knob sort of operation, check this one out. Initial reservations about the module was whether it was cramped or if it was confusing at all. But in my experience, it's really well thought out and everything's really easy to get to. Knobs and button layouts are actually really good, and literally after 3 patches, a lot of possibilities came out of what I could do with it. And I think with those offerings, you'll gravitate to whatever is most appealing to you. Honestly, this is my favorite type of module. You don't need to understand everything right away. You can learn key things and get right into making music. Then if you have questions like, I wonder if it could do this, digging a bit in the manual just brings out more possibilities for you. It'll likely inspire patches that you haven't done yet. The UI and core ideas are really front and center, so it really helped me from being overwhelmed. It's more of a playful type thing, really. I know I recently got rid of Baker, a Peaks clone, because there were too many modes, so why is this one different? I feel like some modules have so many modes you have a hard time picking which one to use, but on Neo Trinity, you only have 3 modes really, and 6 outputs for those modes, so you could double them up if you want. You could pick any assortment of any of the 3 modes, actually. That definitely helps to reduce some of the friction. It's like getting to order Italian, Mexican, and Indian all in one meal. Yum. Okay, food analogy. Moving on. There's so many different ways that I can imagine using Neo Trinity. There can be so many patches that I'm gonna get into. Just the start. And yeah, I think it'll stay in that spot in the case, or at least fight really hard to stay there. And no, that's not just because Bastl sent it to me. I just really like having a modulation source, CV recorder, and triggers all in one module with envelopes. Let's see, did I miss anything? No, there's lots of things that I haven't really explored in the patches here. Here are some of them. I haven't messed with the scale quantizer at all. Really, that's because the Bard Quartet is great. I like the way that it works for melodic ideas and it stays flexible. But in a smaller case, I feel like Neo Trinity having quantization built in for scales, that'll be really great. Plus, I think Bard Quartet is just doing single octave quantization, but maybe Neo Trinity is going to do whole scales. Again, my theory is not good, but I think that's a thing. Oh, another thing I didn't really use in the video was the meta inputs. I feel like this is going to be really great for more generative patching, and I didn't really do that. Very excited to check it out, and of course I'll share any amazing things that I come across. Maybe in a tiny case video that I'm kind of thinking about. I did use this a bit, but I didn't really showcase it. LFOs, you can actually choose whether you want them to be clocked or unclocked, so they can be clocked in divs or mults of the clock, or they can just be free running, which great to turn that on and off in one module. Here's a really cool use that I didn't take advantage of, being able to save and recall patterns as you're going. Say if you're sequencing melodies like I was, and you come upon something that's like really amazing, you want to be able to come back to it, you can save that into a bank, keep going and exploring and creating, and then recall it later on. Or you can do that a number of times, sort of leaving breadcrumbs, and then return to these different main parts of a performance as you go. Again, I'm really not good at pattern management, so maybe there's a little bit of resistance in me to get into that, but I feel like it'd be really great for performance. One thing that I thought of could be a little bit of a snag was when you're changing from one pattern to another pattern, you really want to make sure that you know where that one is, where the first kind of part of that beat is, especially if you're doing beats, kicks, snares, stuff like that. There's 2 ways that you might want to manage with that. One would be using the trig generator. That's at least going to put you in the ballpark of where the grid is. Maybe you can't tell the difference between the 1 and whatever the middle of the bar is, but you'll at least get closer. The other way is you could make some sort of default beat that you might want to start off with if you're making a lot of beats, and just save that in, say, F. And then you could use that as your basis for creating everything. You'd at least know where the 1 is. Maybe there's a crash on the 1 or something. So if that's important to you, you could definitely do it. But for me, I honestly was just hammering out kicks and snares and whatever. It didn't really matter where the 1 was because I wasn't ever going to switch from one pattern to another, but something to think about. Another thing you could do is generate patterns and melodies on a muted channel. That way you don't have any notes that are sort of falling out of time of what you're making, and then you can just unmute it and then you have a whole new pattern or melody ready to go. Oh, I've also done all the jams and stuff like that with quantization on in terms of timing, like timing quantization. And that just basically moves everything so it sort of falls in line with the clock. You can turn it off per channel, maintaining whatever sort of feel you have tapping trigs in. Another way at it would be to modulate an attack envelope, so you're basically nudging it forward and backwards as you have different trigs come up. Oh, some small things, there's mutes per channel. Oh, and maybe the last thing to mention, if you're using Neo Trinity to generate clock, you're actually choosing from fixed numbers. So if you want 160 BPM, you can have that right from the module, even though it doesn't have a screen. You just need to know where the knob position is. Anyway, I think that's about all that I have to say about Neo Trinity. It's been awesome to slowly get to know it, and hopefully you've been enjoying following me along. I think that I've succeeded in not doing the long, extensive explanation of the panel. If you still want that, I could probably do like a one patch video where I'm explaining it a little bit more in the detail. But again, check out the manual or check out some of the Bastl videos. They're great. Instead, this video is definitely more of a meandering sort of ride through me learning something. And yeah, it's taken a little bit of time, mainly because my kids got out of school before I finished, and then time just all vaporizes. I don't think I've got a lot of patching in, but I've slowly been chipping away at this video and it's now done. I also learned Resolve in the process, which has been really cool. That's sort of why I didn't post the jam video that I had mentioned in my last video. I was just more excited to kind of learn new things and get moving, and I really wanted to work on this Neo Trinity video because it's just been sitting there waiting for me, and I really gel with it. It's awesome. I also took on the extra challenge of recording in different places in my house, which has been really fun, but also a little bit more stressful and challenging. Plus, this room gets really hot in the summer. So yeah, appreciation to all you legit filmmakers out there. My initial plan was to do some chill jams throughout the summer and take a break on the sort of longer videos like this, but seeing how September is so close, I feel like I'll just continue on like this. It seems to be the way that I like to make these videos anyway. So yeah, more learning, more fun around the corner for sure. As always, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. There's probably a small amount of you that are actually subscribed. So if you like this video, check out some of the other things, consider subscribing. I love it. Oh, and if you're this far in the video, please go down to the comments and leave a question. Ask me something about Neo Trinity or something else in the case, and I am more than happy to chat, banter back and forth about it. Yeah, I just love talking about this stuff, honestly. And if you don't have any questions, maybe tell me something that you're working on learning right now. There was a really long gap where I was working and I wasn't really actively learning, and then I came upon the chance to like learn new skills and learn new things, and I've just been on a big kick since then. So Modular is definitely one of those deep dive things that I've got into. I've been learning video, I've been learning how to tell stories, how to talk to the camera, lighting. There's actually a little bit of lighting in this room. Again, what is real? I mean, with a module called Neo Trinity, it only makes sense that I mention the matrix at least a couple times. Other things that I've been learning: editing, Resolve, modules, and on top of that, just how to be a okay parent. So shout out to all the parents out there. I'm sure you're doing great. It's tricky. However you're making stuff, I hope you're having a good time doing it. Happy patching, happy summer, and enjoy some more of my videos. And if you're all caught up though, just know that I'm working on the next one. Cheers.